Project Lawful aka Planecrash by Arwayne aka Eliezer Yudkowsky and Lintamande. What the Truth Can Destroy, Episode 150.
PL timestamp, day 59.
Sometimes Keltham questions whether he was, in fact, dropped in a world next to someone impossibly sexually compatible to him, despite the whole thing with masochists who are impervious to biting damage, etc. He worries about whether everything he wants is guaranteed to be something his partner needs, and whether everything his partner needs is in fact something guaranteed to match his own needs and desires. He does feel like he's pushing himself, a bit, in doing this. Isidre would probably tell him to take it slower. He fought security until he was over the mental shock of combat. He fought security until he stopped hesitating to defend himself. He fought security until he stopped hesitating to attack. He fought Maritzel until that stopped feeling quite so wrong and unnatural, to fight someone weaker than security, who he'd had sex with and felt some affection for. He fought Maritzel altered and disguised as Carissa, until it stopped feeling wrong to hit somebody who looked like the one he loved. Keltham is deliberately doing everything he can to draw on and self-actualize the parts of himself that ought to go into doing this, according to claims he's heard from Carissa and Isidre and Abigail and Jacinthe. Everyone who ought to know better than he does. The desire for power over Carissa, the desire to force her to feel what he wants her to feel, his need to command any sexual response he wants from her, sadism, cruelty, lust, pride, every scrap of evil he can find in himself. A sense of entitlement, that it's as much his right to have this from Carissa as it is for him to wear his shirt, because she gave herself, no, because she expressed a willingness to be taken, and he took her. Keltham does understand that he's not supposed to push himself for Carissa's sake. He isn't, or doesn't think he is. He wants to be able to command her pleasure in the cuddle room. He wants that to be the way that reality is. And he's pushing himself to get this thing that he desires. He's pushing himself because it annoys him that he can't just shrug off his Dathilani conditioning, as was previously appropriate to a world with alternate physics from Golarion, a place where masochism and submission doesn't exist. He's not in that place and needs to stop acting like it, especially as it comes between himself and Carissa. Isidre would probably tell him to take it slower, but it's almost 2 months since he got to Golarion, day 55 by his count. A slightly above average teenage Dathilani should not be that slow to update, however much lower standards may be in Golarion. What Keltham wants to do is tell Carissa that there's something he's going to do with her, and ask if her schedule is clear for a couple of hours. He doesn't. If she made a crucial beauty treatment appointment with a 1,000 GP reserve price that can only be taken in the next few hours, Keltham will compensate her. It's not very likely, and this, above all, should not seem to Carissa like she could have avoided it. He gets security to track Carissa's movements, waits until she's passing not far from their cuddle room, quietly steps out from a corner, behind her, with a controlled face, and uses a rod to cast Curse of Magic Negation on Carissa Sevar.
Security, consulting with Subirox, has notified Carissa in broad terms that Keltham is working on the advice the Queen gave him about how to fix her. Not more specifics than that. Nothing about attacking her. Even with her shiny new pin of glibness, it seems silly to test her bluff where there's no need. Also, they're looking forward to watching this. Carissa feels the spell hit her and shouts for help instantly, instinctively, before she turns around and sees Keltham. Security! Need confirmation. That's Keltham.
Keltham doesn't have words to respond to this right now. He's already casting Bestow Curse targeted on Carissa's ability to overcome the previous curse. This will, of course, be visible to her permanent Detect Magic and her spellcraft ability to read his gestures. Keltham wants his Carissa fighting him at least a little seriously here, so security isn't going to respond to her in words, except in the negative sense of visibly not helping her. Bestow Curse requires touching Carissa after he casts it, which, strengthened and graced, will be his next step, if he can.
It's probably Keltham. If you're a serious attacking force, Carissa's probably unconscious or dead before she knows what hit her. No confirmation, though. She draws her dagger and tries to stab him while he tries to curse her.
Sure, she can stab him anywhere that isn't his head, if that lets him complete the curse instead of wasting it. He's got healing and resistance to damage just like her, and he isn't as afraid of pain and injury as he once was. And showing her that he's got healing, of the flashy channeling type, will be additional probabilistic evidence that it's Keltham and make her less afraid of a real security breach. That is not how he's supposed to be making decisions right now. He'll use a spontaneous cure instead afterwards, though she can probably read that too, with her spellcraft.
She's not trying to stab him in the head, she's trying to stab him in the hands, as she's not going to kill a high-level spellcaster, and interfering with their ability to cast spells is the best she can hope for. She does, in fact, relax somewhat when he heals himself, and then she turns around and tries to run.
Graced, strengthened, and now with non-zero training in non-purely defensive martial arts, Keltham will catch her and trip her and knock her down, and then give her a chance to get up. Fight me at your hardest, Carissa. Show us both the actual truth about whether I can outfight you when you're not holding back. There's nothing you can do to me, or I to you, that Jacinthe can't undo.
Oh, all right then. In that case, she will try to stab him in the head, though while possibly having somewhat mixed feelings about whether she wants to succeed at this.
That's a move which Keltham will deflect as smoothly as a low-level monk. Not being stabbed in the head by an aggressor with a kitchen knife is an almost purely defensive capability that civilization is happy to train into anyone very thoroughly, using computer-assisted reflex formation and guidance. His return fist strike may also possibly lack some sincerity behind it, but he's trying to overcome that.
Carissa is a wizard, and not even a combat-tracked one. It was obviously not the best use of her by the time she was 14. Having a knife is a pretty substantial advantage in a fistfight, but it's approximately her only one, and also she's totally internally flinching every time she attempts to use it. She can, however, withstand quite a lot of very powerful punches without in any sense indicating she'd rather surrender than take another one.
You're not fighting for real, and that's disappointing me given the amount of effort I put into making sure I'd win against that. Fight me like we're at the World Wound, and I'm a demon wearing this face.
Right, except that doesn't cause a worldwide catastrophe if she kills him and Osirian raises him. No, this was planned. There'll be a plan for that. There'll be someone nearby with breath of life. She starts trying, between attempted stabs, to work their way down the hallway. She'll recover faster than Keltham from falling out a third-story window.
When Keltham estimates he's burned halfway through his cat's grace and bull's strength, he'll start sincerely trying to do enough damage to Carissa that afterwards he can haul her off to the cuddle room without her being able to effectively resist. Breaking bones aren't out of the question. He's rehearsed damage on that level with Meritxell, and inflicted more pain than that on Carissa before. He'll try to grab her back from the window if she gets there, and he realizes that's what she's doing in time. Failing that, he'll follow her out after only a slight hesitation, if that becomes necessary. The average Dath Ilani male teenager does not like losing.
So all you have to do is make it losing, not to be evil. She'll have to think that through later because it's actually very hard to think in the middle of a fight. He can stop her before she can jump. He's a lot faster and a lot stronger right now.
Yeah, he doesn't really see what she was trying there. She doesn't have infernal healing anymore, and he can heal himself. Maybe she just thought he'd hesitate too long to follow her out. If so, he can prove to her that she was wrong about that some other time. Now, before his spells run out, he needs to do enough real damage to Carissa that she can no longer resist him. If he picks her up and carries her off, break both of her upper arms for a start. He did rehearse that with Meritxell, and she was fine afterwards, though she did yell in pain at the time. And Carissa is stronger than Meritxell. He can heal any broken bones once Carissa is properly in chains. He'd want somebody to do that for him, if he had Carissa's pain tolerance, and he couldn't manage to have an orgasm in company otherwise.
Brogea, what did you tell this boy?
To win. At least that's what Keltham heard Abigail saying. It's not a message Dathelani are totally unsympathetic to, although back in civilization, they might have had qualms about this particular battle being one that should be fought in the first place. Okay, that looks pretty helpless there, if not exactly subdued, per se, because Carissa Savar. Now to sling his possession over his shoulder and carry her off to the cuddle room while he's still got the bull's strength. That's supposed to be romantic.
It is. She will sort of affectionately nuzzle him about it.
Oh, that definitely makes him feel better about all this. Is he supposed to be thinking like that? Actually, probably yes. He doesn't just feel like he's transgressed less against lawful good. He feels like everything is right with their relationship after all. That he did the thing Carissa's owner is supposed to do, and his possession reacted to that like his possession should. Cuddle room, chains, and she can have a healing once she's in them. He'll be hurting her in other ways, of course, once she's helpless, but having her limbs broken makes his possession less pretty. Keltham will say so in words before he heals her.
Now he's out of affectionate nuzzling range, and she should probably come up with words to say in response, but that seems faintly ridiculous somehow, as if words like magic are a thing employed by a different Carissa Savar and not by Keltham's possession. This seems like a fine state of affairs, except for how it was totally unexpected, and Keltham probably hasn't been told it's a fine state of affairs. Maybe security could tell him?
It hasn't actually occurred to Keltham to worry about his possession not speaking. It feels fine to him, too. If he wants her to exhibit any behavior, he'll force it out of her. He'll click the tickling collar around Carissa, too. It's not her first time with it. And see about wringing some reactions out of her. Screams and flinches, hysterical laughter, and this time, also pleasure. The only thing he'll say to her is that she's just there to be a thing that has real feelings. Not to try to force anything, as he's taught her before on other occasions. He'll hurt her severely any time he sees her getting tangled up in her thoughts again. Just be in the chains, have no goals, and feel. Anything resembling strategy is his own concern as her master. If they don't get a 100% total success on this occasion, Keltham will celebrate the progress they've made on their relationship, and then write Abrogale for more advice. So, no need to worry.
Carissa's feelings are kind of a mess. Maybe that's why she hasn't been doing too much feeling them lately. But she feels terrified of Keltham and everything Keltham represents, of how high the stakes are in her life at all times, and she feels impressed and proud because Keltham wanted to become more evil for her. And he's learning, and he's really good at it. Honestly, he's doing better on learning to enjoy cruelty than Carissa herself is. No, that's not a useful line of thought to go down right now. And she feels the desire for it to be real, the desire for this to be all there is, the desire for Keltham to know everything and break her bones about it and then say to Cheliax that if actually he's not spending any social capital with them to demand people enslaved, he'll have Carissa forever, please. And she feels confused, so profoundly confused, about what evil is and what love is and what cruelty is and about what Asmodeus wants and why this is part of it, and that, too, is definitely getting too caught up in her head. And if she doesn't have time or space to think about any of that, then she's just here, scared with her fate in Keltham's hands and yet so much safer than she ever was anywhere else, because he won't let her be destroyed. Outside of complicated hypotheticals about Zon-Kuthon, nope, that too is getting too caught up in her head. Carissa Savar needs to figure out all that stuff at some point so that this whole complex juggling act doesn't come crashing down on her head and destroy everything she loves. Keltham's possession does not need to figure out all that stuff. She just needs to stop thinking and let things happen to her until Keltham gets what he wants, or gets bored. A lot of things hurt a lot less if you stop thinking about them. It might not be very Dathelani, but it's true. Love is a lot nicer when you stop thinking about it. That, she suspects, is a perfectly Asmodean stance to have on it. Keltham's possession can relax around him, because it wouldn't matter if she tried to be on her guard or not. Keltham's possession cannot protect herself and cannot advance her goals and cannot talk, but can, through small, happy sounds, convey that that's quite all right, really, and that she does not want it to end.
He doesn't want it to end either. Keltham can see it, or thinks he can, that Carissa is just existing now, with some of the noise in her head quieted, and he wants to protect her from all her thoughts and extend the protective time she has where she doesn't need to think them. It feels right, what they're doing now, the way he's possessing her and the way she's being possessed. Keltham has a lesser restoration or two, cued if at any point he starts to feel fatigued, or she does, as shown by her reaction starting to diminish. He decided, before this started, that he'd play with Carissa, however he felt like it, until he stopped feeling like it. He's unlikely to stop feeling it, so long as Carissa looks safe and protected and happy, like this. That's the way a possession of Keltham's should look.
Do they have this in hell? Seems like a good question not to ask yourself, really.
Okay, but did he succeed in forcing pleasure out of her? However much Keltham is successfully having other and more important metrics of relationship success, he is a male Dathilani. He is physically incapable of not evaluating every single thing that could conceivably look like a relationship figure of merit, of which that is still one.
Yes? It's not that hard, really. Once you've gotten a girl to stop thinking about how she's lying to you about everything as part of an elaborate high-stakes conspiracy, which will probably end either in Cheliax conquering the planet, or in her and everyone who trusted her being executed.
That's some mild progress. How about the thing he does to Yaisa? Can he also manage to do that to Carissa?
It's somewhat different because she doesn't seem to mind at all, or to really be forming expectations about what he'll be doing, so she seems to hardly notice she's being teased.
Well, he's definitely going to try it for at least 5 minutes to see if she notices that. Try for 5 minutes asterisk before giving up is a Dathilani proverb after all. Asterisk, technically 4 minutes and 7.4 rounds in Galarian time units.
Pattern recognition presently offline. You see, if it were online, then she'd have to think about kind of a lot of things that are better not to think about.
Right then, well, he'll just amuse himself with his non-pattern recognizing toy as the impulse moves him, and trust to his own timing instincts to end the flow shortly before he would otherwise start to feel tired or burned about it. There's a saying out of Dathilan that if you leave the party once you start feeling tired, you failed at timing. The ideal time to leave is 5 minutes before that. When Keltham is done, he'll let her out. Cuddle up to Carissa while she's still in chains, closing his own eyes and whispering that she doesn't need to say anything. If he let Carissa out, or made her talk, she'd probably look less safe or protected or happy, and Keltham can't make himself do that. Not on purpose, not by his own acts, even if it needs to happen eventually. At some point she'll need to go to the bathroom, and then she'll have to talk, or she'll have feelings to talk about, or something. Until then, Keltham can't make her speak.
The relaxed, happy feeling drains away as soon as she starts trying to think what to say. Ah, well, she doesn't actually want to be Keltham's happy, safe possession who can't think all the time. I'm impressed, she manages after a bit.
He sits up a little in the bed to look at her, and is able to tell that she is no longer entirely in that protected, happy state. He feels a little sad then, though he wouldn't want Carissa to always be an unthinking, feeling thing. To own Carissa Sevar is a prideful thing, because she is the spellcraft master building his intelligence headband assembly line, who could have also had Abigail Thrune if Keltham hadn't snapped Carissa up first by a matter of 3 days. Still, he wishes he could have protected her for longer. That was part of the idea there, yes.
And it was, for you? Because you wanted to?
Checked that part really hard. Made sure going in that it was all about my ability to force any reaction I wanted out of my possession, and my own pride, and that I was pushing myself along faster, only out of my desire to have that from you, and be faster about adapting to Galarion. That lasted around as long as it took for me to see you looking safe in the chains, and then it immediately became all about wanting you to go on looking like that. But I don't think that's too good. I think that's just how I want my possession to look.
Okay, it was really good. Like all the stakes and all the being scared. just went away. You can make your possession look like that as often as you want. I love you. I'm sorry about everything.
I love you. Part of him still believes that this must inevitably end in disaster, but whether it does or not, the statement itself is true.
PL timestamp, day 60. PL timestamp, day 61. Cheliax produces 11 plus 2 intelligence headbands for the project, produced under carefully monitored conditions and definitely safe to wear. They do know there's now more than 11 headbandless researchers. They just couldn't change the number of headbands they were making midstream like that.
I'm extremely tempted, once we have the spell silver, to just make everyone all our headbands myself.
I'll understand if you want to make yourself a +6/1, but when it comes to +4 headbands, if I was in your position, I'd set myself the rule and challenge that I was going to have all those headbands made, quickly and correctly, by average 3 RD Circle wizards working in shifts to fully utilize the headband constructing magic items you made for them. Yes, Keltham has already asked about having wizards specialize in particular aspects of headband manufacture so they can form an assembly line. The answer was that it wouldn't be easy even by Carissa's standards. Given the way item crafting works, just having 2 people working on the same item is enough of a skill penalty. So the best current plan is to have wizards trading off the assistive gadgets between each other as they reach particular manufacturing stages in staggered steps, such that a large factory section only needs 1 assistive item per manufacturing stage across many headband assembly stations. That's a further advantage of doing it with multiple assistive items instead of 1 big staff of headband making.
You're, of course, completely right, but also your idea is unappealing because they will do it so slowly. Carissa has officially brought on her 3rd Circle Enchanter assistant to be a 3rd Circle Enchanter who can demonstrate bottlenecks in headband making. She's going with the approach of a series of armillary amulet-like items which make each step of the process easier, and she thinks will amount to 2 or 3 times the bonus from an armillary amulet, all told. Somehow, even with that, most 3rd Circle wizards are worse than her at enchanting magic items. Probably they'll get there with more practice.
Carissa, the project needs 15 plus 4 intelligence headbands to start with. If you can't get the factory to the point where 15 3rd Circles can produce 15 plus 4 headbands faster than 1 Carissa can, you haven't sped up their work enough.
They should be able to do that. The assistant's actually only a bit slower than me by now on the parts that I have the items complete for. I do want to take a stab at totally changing how we train enchanters. In the long run, though, the multiplier won't be as big.
Yes, everything in Golarion is broken, and we have to fix every individual aspect of it. But priorities, Carissa. Priorities. We have to fix things in a particular order, and it'd be nice to do it in a near-optimal one. Think of how much easier they'll be to retrain once they have +4 intelligence headbands.
As you command.
PL timestamp, day 62.
Piranza ends like a star dies, running out the last of the fuel that makes it possible for it to sustain its current form against the immense pressures of gravity. This is how Piranza ends. She's getting her weekly Owl's Wisdom tapping, the one where you sit quietly in your bedroom and think about the law and yourself. Keltham thinks it takes place early in the morning. It actually takes place during the long night, in case anything goes wrong then. Keltham's theory was that stresses wouldn't accumulate for too long, that way. Wouldn't build up in a backlog that causes cascades and massive personality shifts all at once. It's a theory that doesn't really work if the person has spent her previous wisdom minutes on reviewing law notes, in a frantic effort not to have her own mind come apart from thinking all the thoughts and seeing all the things that are easier not to think and see when not under Owl's wisdom. This policy is in no sense the result of a conscious plan. It's just that some past Piranza, who didn't want to be an outcast heretic even if somebody claimed she would survive that, nor wish to suffer horribly in hell after that, no matter how totally infeasible that life goal was starting to look for her, conditioned herself with pain and horror against the possibility of thinking thoughts that hell or security might not like. That past Piranza made flinchy the sense of maybe being about to see, because you have to stop yourself before you think the thought, if your mind is being read. And Keltham went on lecturing, day after day, from civilizational attitudes and techniques that were, if not designed to turn him into a keeper, at least designed to exclude every possibility of any Daithilani ever turning into anything remotely like Paranza. 3 days ago now, Keltham talked to the mad experimental lecture section about the principle of despair in the futility of madness as a pathway toward sanity. How, if you notice yourself trying to convince yourself of something, you should then think that it's obviously too late for you to pull that trick on yourself. Once you know what you're trying to do to yourself, the law of filtered evidence should apply to whatever biased search for arguments your mind tries to run. How, if you find yourself trying to talk yourself out of knowing, you should think then with despair that it's already too late. How, if you try to talk yourself into defying the law, you should look to the part of yourself that knows deep down that the law governs and your defiance does not. Keltham said to remember then that you've already been trained to know the difference between wishing you believe something versus wanting to believe something, versus hoping that you believe something, versus anticipating seeing it, the feeling of knowing what happens if you bet. You should despair then that it's too late and you already know what you don't really believe. Give up, lose hope, and know what it is that you already know. It could be considered something akin to an attempted hypnotic instruction to believe you can't deceive yourself anymore. Paranza tried very hard not to think about any of it.
And at the end of that lecture, Keltham said, smiling, that if anybody here had managed, somehow, not to process all of that, they should know with dread in their hearts that it'll probably come to visit them during their next owl's wisdom. And every time that thought occurs to them, while waiting for their next owl's wisdom, even if they see themselves looking away from that thought, they should know then that it's definitely coming for them. That's how Paranza ends, at Keltham's hands, who thought he was joking. In Keltham's defense, one might note that everybody in his class sure did claim very seriously to him that they wanted to learn and needed to learn, and that Galarian had different attitudes towards risk tolerance, that he should press ahead by the swiftest path unless and until something actually bad happened, and that Keltham was pretty sure that the almost certainly existent backlog of crazy past thought had to be reprocessed by his students at some point, unless they outright quit. The attitude that civilization taught Keltham towards this sort of thing inevitably happening to you eventually, when you're ready, is a lot like the attitude that Carissa Sevar has towards pain. And when his class told him to hurry that up, well, he does know the techniques you use on children to make sure they don't spend too long stuck.
It still left a long time for Paranza to be afraid, and to try not to look in that direction, and to hear in the back of her mind Keltham's voice saying what he said, and become more and more aware of herself not looking, and to start to fear that everything he said was just true, and the next time she got her owl's wisdom, it would all fall apart. She thought of begging Sevar to spare her from the wisdom, but she knew very well that not only would Sevar say that they shouldn't lie to Keltham, but also that Sevar wanted to see Paranza break, because what was left might be more useful to Sevar, and if not, there would just be the sad event of Paranza getting fired from the project, and Sevar learning more about which people not to hire next time. In the end, all Paranza did was count the remaining days, and not think about what was awaiting her, except as a series of fleeting, dreading thoughts, too buried for security to catch during any times she was being mind-read. That's what happens when decisions are made locally and for local considerations, to reduce the next bit of pain and immediate loss. It wasn't pleasant for her how Paranza ended. Paranza gets her mandatory weekly owl's wisdom, and, just like Keltham had told her to be afraid of happening, she starts to see everywhere that she was lying to herself. She tries so hard to look away, and every time she does, her thoughts go helplessly into highlighting and making explicit what it is she's trying not to see. That she's always been repeating back what she was told, trying hard not to think at all about whether it was true, only is this the safe thing to say? The thing that evades punishment? You know now that's not law. You know that it's not what you believe deep down. That there's no way Sevar's plan can command the ascent of hell, that all Sevar's precious Ilani are going to be shattered into whatever valuable new shapes hell wants from them, bought with their vast prices in dis that no Ilani ever gets paid themselves. And even if they keep their knowledge and their law, They'll still be tortured out of remembering their own names because Asmodeus likes it more that way. That there maybe isn't very much difference between being tortured a standard amount in hell and being tortured an extra amount because you were bad during your mortal life or useless, which is the whole incentive that gets held out in front of you. And they try to convince you that if you're on course for just the standard, unimaginably horrible torture that turns useful people into devils, you're making progress and winning at life. But she doesn't want that either. That she doesn't want Abaddon, doesn't want to stop existing. But even if that was better than hell, there's no way it would really be allowed to her. When a count of hell paid so much to repurchase her soul from some devil now rich, they'll lie to Sever about it and deliver Peranza to hell anyways. That she hates her life, hates the church, hates Cheliax, hates Asmodeus, is full of helpless screaming at everything that's ever been done to her. No. Don't look. Don't see it. She'll die. This, right here. This is the direction you're not looking. Peranza is not looking there. She has layers and layers of approved thoughts and safe thoughts, and the goal of living on another day in Cheliax, delaying hell one more day, passing her loyalty tests, and not getting into trouble. It's not much of an exaggeration to say that if you come in and smash all that, you've destroyed most of what's Peranza. Like a contradiction that proves the negation of everything, the wreckage of Peranza has no safe thoughts left to think, no approvable thoughts. Everything at all that she tries to think gets shut down by pain and horror, leaving nothing but a sense of abortive thought starts and ouches and whatever wordlessness goes on in the background. That was how Peranza ended. There's another person inside her head, though. Somebody she's pretended herself into being, day after day. Somebody who lives in a world with a kinder hell. Somebody who isn't afraid. Somebody whose thoughts aren't disintegrating like this. Somebody she's been for hour after hour, fleeing into her whenever she could, into the much less painful work of figuring out what Alter Peranza says, thinks, believes, how she smiles around Keltham, smiles for Keltham. Her disintegrating mind flees into Alter Peranza, while the rest of real Peranza is coming apart, and it manages to be her. She's just in the ordinary world. There is no conspiracy, no horror. Hell is merciful, Asmodeus is benevolent. This is the true Peranza. She's always been the only Peranza. Real Peranza was just a bad dream. It doesn't actually work. She tries to convince herself it works, but she sees herself trying to do that, and Keltham's foretelling that she's been terrified of all week just comes to her again. She knows she can't really believe she's Alter Peranza. Hell will still be there, and the punishment. Alter Peranza also ends, having lived perhaps half a minute. Like a contradiction that proves the negation of everything, the wreckage of Peranza, again, has no safe thoughts left to think. No approved thoughts. Everything at all that she tries to think gets shut down by pain and horror, leaving nothing but a sense of abortive thought starts and ouches and whatever wordlessness goes on in the background. Can't think. In desperation, in wordless desperation, the wreckage of Peranza takes the only option that's available to her, that could possibly help. It's not a conscious strategy, it's just something her brain learned can help sometimes. When her thoughts are failing her, it probably just makes everything worse, but it feels like the worst possible thing is already happening to her. She might as well cast Fox's cunning on herself before she falls apart completely. Maybe she'll get out of this agony a little faster and go on to whatever horror comes next. It obviously doesn't do anything good. Her thoughts sharpen, and yes, she sure does see even more clearly everything now that she isn't thinking. But there's a third potential pattern of thought inside Peranza, besides real Peranza, besides Alter Peranza, and with a little more cunning it can boot. It's a pattern of thought made a little out of explicit law and games played with children, and made some out of Alter Peranza, who had many times thought several thoughts in a row without anything bad happening to her, and made quite a lot out of Keltham, her inner model of him, what he'd say, made of stories and legends and dreams, that Keltham has told them all, now and again, civilization's heroes, the real and the imaginary components, Nemamel, Mialsvor, People who died the true death to save others from it, on the very, very rare occasions that did make sense. Stories of civilization and civilization's people that Alter Peranza has listened to so eagerly for Keltham, with real Peranza behind her, also listening, filled with a desperate, sad, horrified, painful, angry yearning that she's always looking away from, never looking, there she'll die. But now Alter Peranza is gone, and real Peranza is shattered, and there's nothing left to stop those feelings. It's a third pattern of thought that is coherent. Once it thinks one thought, it knows how to go on to the next. It isn't built on lies. It lives in a horrifying universe, but it has ways of handling that. Namemal would. Peranza disintegrates, and what's left inside her is horror and fury, and the memory of skyscrapers in default, Keltham's comfortable home, and a children's song about logistics, and the seeing of what the Dath Alani heroes, what their keepers would think about Hel and Asmodeus, what they would do if they found themselves materialized into Cheliak's knowing. Really just the obvious thoughts to think, after some bits of law somehow got inside you. Enough overlapping fragments with insufficient cunning to initially boot the coherence between them. When, under some new stress, all the complicated things that dissolved into their own contradictions and mutual inhibitions weakening them, like a dying star running out the lesser fuels that maintained its present form against immense pressures, Peranza collapses into herself. Peranza of civilization, first of Yerwain, and ignites. Blazing up brighter than was possible before, cunning and wisdom full on high and unimpeded, cognitions now that don't tangle up and get in their own way. Her first thought is that security could be reading her mind right now. Probably is. They haven't killed her on the spot only because they don't realize how deadly she has now become to all Hell's works. Security is listening to her thoughts right now and laughing about how she isn't Keltham and doesn't need to be killed within 2.5 seconds. And what Mialsvor does in that situation is find a single clever winning move that happens too fast for security to stop, even if they see her intentions. Some incredibly clever strategy that changes everything, and necessarily has to execute at very nearly the speed of thought, has to be put into action the moment that intention becomes visible. Iomede, pay attention. Look at me. Look at my location. Read my thoughts. Hell is almost on the verge of a final victory. They're learning from an innocent human outsider from beyond known reality. They're learning to mine spellsilver at 1/10. The cost Hell is going to make better devils. All the other gods need to join together and stop Asmodeus before it's too late. Nethys is with him, and Caden Kylian has betrayed you.
At which point I rendered her unconscious, obviously. He's trembling.
Presumably because she's going to ask the obvious question now, which is, oh, why then and not sooner?
I didn't think she could do anything. There's an interdiction, and it seemed perhaps valuable to the project to have a full record of her thought processes and where they took her, rather than one interrupted halfway through.
Was that also the judgment of Elias Abarco, who heads your division? For the monitoring of the girls whose minds might be walking Asmodeanism shredders.
I didn't have time to ask him. It would have entailed looking away from Peranza's mind for some time to dispatch someone to go get him, and it seemed dangerous to do that.
Carissa is realizing, unhappily, that the cost of having the walking info hazard girls monitored by more disposable security is that they'll be monitored by less competent security. You can't even specifically blame the idiot for being an idiot. She, after all, demanded a selection process that'd get her idiots. At what point did you have an inkling that Peranza seemed to be having a noticeably, remarkably bad time?
More or less right away, sir.
And at that point, you didn't contemplate getting Abarco's attention, or you did, but decided against, because...
I wasn't sure this was much worse than usual, since I've only been at this for a week, sir, and I didn't want to waste his time.
Because Elias Abarco is terrifying. Right, she says tiredly. It's gross incompetence, and she needs to punish it, but also the ultimate errors are all hers. Is that what it's always like as you get better at seeing it? Well, now you're going to waste a lot more of his time. You and him are going to go through everything she thought, what she concluded, what pushed her along the way, and you're going to write up a minimally dangerous summary and then a somewhat more dangerous summary at whatever Abarco thinks is the level that almost certainly won't cause copycats, and then a full summary for the Most High should she desire to see it. And then we'll return to the question of how 2 rounds passed before you were able to subdue the subject you were monitoring while she prayed to Iomade.
Yes, sir.
Notice any impulses in yourself to pray to Iomade too? Since you hadn't fetched Abarco, you could have. Could have run in there to Paranza and told her that you agree with her and you want to take this project down together.
I don't agree with her. She didn't even have an argument, really. She just...
And now she's angry. Idiot. Everything Paranza thought is secret. You have just been apprised of the procedures. I do not need to know or want to know right now what she thought. I asked a yes or no question.
No.
Then go and bring me that report. Promptly. She wants to talk to Paranza too, of course, but that seems like a terrible idea. Is there even a way to have her conscious again without her praying to Iomade? And then they need to figure out what to tell Keltham. She wants to talk to Paranza. She wants to know what forbidden thought can turn a loyal, Chelish person into someone who screams the whole conspiracy to Iomade without a second's advance thought. What makes someone willing to be tortured? Forever. For that. Because that's what Abigail promised them. Iomade can't know either, or she'd presumably have her paladins go scream it in every public square. Unless Iomade saw it, right there, just now, and now she does know. Is there a way to let Abarco talk to Paranza without that leaking more to Iomade? She asks without preamble when she reaches Mailol's office.
Mailol looks, very slightly but readably to Sever, older and more tired than yesterday, and noticeably angry. He doesn't get it. When people do this, there's something about it that feels not chaotic, but like the primordial chaos from before Pharasma's imposed order. Like people will be unsensible and insane for no apparent reason. But some flaw in Pharasma's creation, some broken bit of physics that makes people transgress against their tyranny, even when there's absolutely no sane perspective at all where that makes sense for them. What's Asmodeus supposed to do? When some slaves are like this? Nothing that's both cheap and safe. Send the little shit to hell and set up an interview there. It'll cost hell considerable, but not as much as talking to a devil there. Take her to Asmodeus's lesser grand temple in Ostenso and run the risk of the bitch goddess being willing to expend the effort to pierce her vision through it. Put her in the central temple of Asmodeus in Igorian, and have the Most High intercede with Asmodeus to block the vision of all outsiders there. If we're willing to run the risk of a full-scale God war breaking out, once that little shit is outside the interdiction. Anything short of that, and we have to assume the traitor stands out like a fucking beacon to the bitch goddess the moment she's awake and thinking, even if she doesn't pray again. She put herself into the way of torment worse than maledicted paladins get, with less hope and reward. I'd be surprised if she didn't read good now if she was powerful enough for us to read. And she may be more lawful than paladins as well.
I'm worried that there's some Dath Ilani thought that reliably does that, or at least semi-reliably, and now Iomade knows it, and soon we're going to have people teleporting into Igorian to shout it from every rooftop.
What do you propose we do about that, if that's true? Also, I don't quite believe that Dath Ilan is more lawful good than Iomade. Just because the gods know thoughts like that doesn't mean they're allowed to tell anyone. And that idiot security did report in himself.
I don't know what we do about it. If there's any way to safely talk to her, it sounds like it's a sufficient expenditure of resources that it's not my call, but I want to know why she did that and how specific it was to her. It sounds like it's not safe to have her in class, even dominated, to tell Keltham that she wants to drop out. I worry he'll think to look with glimpse of beyond, specifically if someone is telling him they quit.
No fucking shit she's not safe to have in class even dominated. She's already done us more damage than we would have guessed possible from her starting point. I think we've got to treat her as a dangerously clever and alien outsider, like Dath Ilan managed to rewrite her mind as an attack on us.
In that case, maybe the best thing to do is to send her to hell and not get an answer to any of our questions. And make the girls stagger their evenings of Owl's Wisdom reflection so a Barco can watch them all during and for a while after. This isn't my call, though. I expect Agorian to have opinions, and even my recommendation to them is going to wait on the security report. Do you know of other cases like this? Other kinds of people who've gone insane and decided to betray everything while already soul-sold?
Yeah, sometimes people just do. I don't know why really, but my guess is that whatever part of them understands what's waiting for them in hell just gives up from all the weight their mind is putting on it. The knowledge of the torment awaiting them keeps forcing them to do a job they don't like, and one day that part breaks. They decide reality is too unpleasant and just deny it. Step out of that state of mind to something else. They teleport out of Cheliax and just don't think about what's waiting for them when their souled soul gets collected, I imagine. I guess. I don't know what's true, and I can't imagine what that feels like from the inside. Most of those just hide. A very few of them. Give every secret they've got to a temple of Iomadai. I don't know why. Maybe they think that hell can't hurt them any worse than for desertion. We tell them that's not true, that you can always go lower, but it happens. I don't actually understand it.
I don't think whatever Dath Ilani technique this was involves denying the truth.
I don't trust Dath Ilan that much. On the Talandria hypothesis of Dath Ilan's real origin, their happy citizens could be programmed with ideas specifically designed to make people from Golarion go insane in a useful way, maybe even targeting Asmodeans directly. Or Peranza could have snapped in some much more ordinary way and, yes, denied reality, after Keltham's teachings put her under too much stress also in a very ordinary way. We don't know.
Well, security will get us our report shortly. For the record, possibly at this point we should have all the staff here mind-read directly by devils.
If you wish to support this AI reading and others like it, please visit patreon.com/AskWhoCastsAI. Any help is appreciated. And thank you to executive producer John Doe 7776059.